Late Night Health continues. We're breaking some news here on Late Night Health, and what we're breaking is a firefighting plan. It's called Operation WildeFire. It is named after its author, creator, our buddy Christian Wilde. We talked to him a while ago about turmeric and other things like that. Christian, how did you? Well, welcome to the show. And the fires are devastating to everybody. You live in Southern California, like Daryl and like me. How did you come up with the idea for Operation WildeFire?
That is a good place to start. Many years ago, I was watching the results of one of those terrible fires, and I am a fisherman and an outdoorsman. I love the Sierras, I love the mountains, and I love nature. And I watched that devastation and saw a helicopter drop a little water and then disappear for 40 minutes where it went to get re-watered, and maybe one aircraft come and drop some retardant and disappear. In the meantime, the winds came up, and that fire gained unrelentless control. And so I'm looking at the LA Times, and it said, if you have any ideas for public policy that could help and save natural resources and other elements, please enter this contest. Well, I did, and I won the award. And I showed it to a few people and put it away. A few years later, I'm watching Washington State have tremendous fires, and I pull out Operation WildeFire, and I send it to the Major General of the Air National Guard in Tacoma, Washington. Within 30 minutes, I get this response. He says, Christian, I am either flying there to meet with you, or you are coming here to Fort Murray. We have to talk about this concept. And so I went up and to Fort Murray, and we discussed it, brainstormed different ideas. He said, I've studied your proposal for 3 days. I can't find a thing wrong with it. He said, I'm going to make one suggestion. Well, first, let me tell you what this proposal was about.
Right.
My idea was, on the tarmacs of several western states are sitting C-130 aircraft, air tanker, forest fighting airplanes. They're already retrofitted. Their crews know how to fly them in case of fire. But they're sitting on those tarmacs, and the state of California is burning to the ground, or Colorado, or Wyoming, or any one of the other states. It made no sense to me that not hitting that fire at the outset with all the assets to get it out of danger to the public before it gained that relentless control and take a month or 2 months to put out. So Major General Scoggins' suggestion was maybe we could have these planes lent to be on one tarmac in one of the western states, ready to go in case of a breakout of a fire, and hit that fire with, like, as an example, 4 airplanes coming north and south, and then 4 other planes coming east and west in a checkerboard pattern. And then local forestry and firefighting personnel could work on the rest of it. But you would nail it and contain it at the first possible time.
And let me ask you, even as an outdoorsman, as a fisherman, as somebody, I like to go hiking up in Boney Mountain and have done so for many years. It's burning right now.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible. And I would not know how to institute a fire prevention or fire putter-outer program.
Well, I will tell you that after my meeting with General Scoggins, he said, I want you to contact the major generals. And incidentally, I don't speak for the National Guard. I have no authority in that regard.
Right.
But he suggested I contact the major generals of 5 states in the West. So I did, and I presented it to them, and every one of them had the same reaction as did Major General Scoggins. Now, every time there'd be a state disaster from forest fires, I would send this proposal, Operation Wildfire, to the editors for an op-ed consideration. I never got any response from anybody, and I kept doing it. Now, Colorado 4 years ago had some tremendous fires, the WildeFire and several others.
Right.
I took it out and sent it to the Director of Forestry and Rangeland, Ann Walker, and she called me back and said, I want to make a couple of suggestions, if you don't mind. I said, absolutely not. Tell me whatever you think can improve it. And she said, I want to present it to the annual meeting of the governors of the Western Governor Association annual meeting. 17 states are represented.
And what was the outcome? What was the outcome of this, Christian?
Nothing.
And today, okay, as you're watching TV, do you believe that your plan, had it been implemented, would have cut the length of the fire, the devastation back?
Yes, I do, because that was her opinion.
And why do you think it's been ignored?
I think it's too much common sense, and they're not realizing that something this simple could be the benefit for all of the states. As a matter of fact, Scoggins had said, incidentally, he's retired right now.
Right.
But he said this could be taken to any state in the Union within 5 hours, because if the planes were organized and during fire season, it'd be in one central area. Now, her suggestion to the governors was that she believed this protocol should be put into effect as a pilot program by the next fire season. That was her recommendation.
And that was when?
That was 4 years ago.
So, again, the question, even though you're an outdoorsman, you produce and create wonderful nutraceuticals with turmeric. What is your experience in this?
Well, it's like everything I do. I have no experience prior to that. When I wrote my first book, Hidden Causes of Heart Attack and Stroke, I took 5.5 years to write it. I mortgaged my house. I hadn't, and people were saying, why are you taking on a sophisticated subject like heart disease and the hidden causes of heart disease? How do you expect anybody to take it seriously? And I said, I have to do what I believe. So when I finished that book, as an example, I sent it to 5 directors of preventive cardiology at 5 major universities. And they endorsed it over the top. One director said, until this book, a resource for the patient was simply not available because the subject is vast and complicated. Have
you yourself suffered a heart attack or have had friends?
No, I had a lot of friends that passed from a heart attack. I would oftentimes be talking to somebody and say, did you hear your friend John died the night before last in his sleep? And I said, no. So I was concerned about what are the hidden causes? What are things that doctors are not seeing? So to answer your question, in totality, I take on something if it makes sense to me, like this fire situation. Seeing forest fires destroy homes and people's lives, and the response is one airplane, one helicopter dropping a little water, and then disappearing for 42 minutes to an hour, and that fire taking control. And so it just made sense to me as I thought about it. Why are these airplanes that are already retrofitted and paid for by the government sitting on their tarmacs in other states? They should be called into the battle, and bomb it like you would in a case of war.
In the war. Honestly, I'm going to ask you a very tough question, Christian.
Go ahead.
Had your plan been implemented, do you believe the government would have saved time, money, and lives and property with Operation WildeFire?
I definitely believe that, but more importantly, when the director from Colorado of Forest Lands suggested that to the Western Governors Convention, the 17 governors I mentioned, in their annual meeting, she was suggesting that they implement it as a pilot program before the next forest fire season. And now that was 3.5 years ago. So it was her opinion as a professional that it made absolute sense to her.
We were talking during our break.
Mm-hmm.
You suggested that this is war. We're fighting a fire.
That's right. And you need to fight it the same way you would. You can't pussyfoot around like they do. How many times do you see that? A fire with maybe a lone helicopter at the outset. And the next thing you turn on your television the next day, and suddenly that fire has burned 50,000 acres, and it's still 5% contained. I don't believe that's the way to do it. I do believe that you hit it at the outset with your full assets.
And knock it out. I mean, there have been thousands and thousands of acres destroyed, buildings, and I think this is, Daryl, didn't you tell me this is the biggest catastrophe in California history?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As far as fires and loss of life, absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
over 40, and they expect more at this point.
And what's going to happen next year? Or then the year after that?
Right.
So they need to put a lid on it.
And what you suggested is that people write their congressmen, their state senators,
Or call them, yeah.
Or call them and say, hey, take a look at Operation WildeFire. I'm assuming you don't have a website for this, or do you?
I do, yeah. It's on my website, myheartbook.com, www.myheartbook.com.
myheartbook.com.
Now, we sent it out yesterday to the LA Times, to the op-ed editor. So would you publish this? Would you think of publishing it? Because if the public hears about it, that's my contention. If the public hears about it, they'll say, why not? Why not?
Yeah, and couldn't you, but one of the other things that I was thinking about is with all the support that you've had from, experts in the field.
Yeah, and 5 major generals.
Right. Get them to call and write letters.
Mm-hmm.
Get them off their duff, too.
Yeah. Because I wonder if you were a pilot for C-130s, and there are many other aircraft now that are being used, but if you were a pilot sitting in Colorado and watching the fires in California, wouldn't you be thinking, I could help if they were to bring me in on this? But there's sometimes a problem between the military conflicting with private enterprise as far as fighting fires. I think there's a law in the book in the 30s that said military cannot take work away from private enterprise. So there are things to be, but you see, an executive order would take care of it all.
Well, we almost didn't get that executive order here in California.
That's right.
Somebody told me the other day that he had he was under a mandatory evacuation, and a police officer came up to all the houses in the neighborhood and said, "You don't have to leave, guys. It's okay. You're safe."
Wow.
Suggesting that it could be a political maneuver just to say, hey, we're doing what we can.
I hate to think that.
I would hate to think that, too. That just makes me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Really nuts.
So, on the off-season, the authorities, the military authorities, could work out a plan if we had to go to this state and you had to leave from your tarmac in your state. We could rendezvous and hit this fire this way. And I keep coming up with this checkerboard idea.
It does. It makes sense. I'm watching, while we're recording the show, as many radio stations have, we're watching the local news, and I'm seeing 1 and 2 planes going at a time, dropping water retardant on the fire. Christian, we're out of time. I invite everybody to go to myheartbook.com, myheartbook.com. Take a look at Operation Wildfire. And if you've been affected, you know people, get your Congress people, your state people to take a look at this program. Christian, hold on for us. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. We will be back.